manhunt over deadly blast at Chinese Communist Party offices. CNN. A local man has been arrested in connection with a series of explosions that rocked Communist Party offices in a northern Chinese province earlier this week. The suspect, named as 41-year-old Wen Xinzhen, was captured during a raid on his home at 2 a.m. local time on Friday morning. Police in Shaanxi said, according to the state-run Xinhua news agency. The report said Fan admitted causing the blast. One person died and 8 others were hurt when several devices exploded in flower bushes in front of the gate of the Shaanxi Provincial Communist Party office in the city of Taiyuan on Wednesday, state broadcaster CCTV reported. The blast shattered the windows of nearby vehicles and shredded some of their tires, CCTV reported. Footage from the scene showed cars with smashed windows and smoke rising in central Taiwan. Xinhua reported that steel bits were scattered at the scene, suggesting the explosive devices were homemade. More explosives were recovered from Fan's home in Taiwan during the early morning raid Friday, as well as the vehicle he used, according to a post on the official Shaanxi account on Weibo, China's Twitter-like service. Party leadership meeting. Authorities are still investigating the incident, which occurred days before a major Communist Party leadership meeting is set to start in Beijing this weekend. Security concerns are already heightened in China following a deadly attack in Beijing's Tiananmen Square last week, in which a vehicle drove into a crowd of people, crashed into a footbridge and burst into flames. Chinese authorities have blamed a group from the western region of Xinjiang for that attack, which killed 5 people, including the 3 in the vehicle, and wounded 40 others in the heavily policed heart of the Chinese capital. A top Chinese security official said last week that the murky Islamic separatist group had instigated the attack. There are no suggestions that the blasts in Taiwan are related to the Tiananmen attack. New greenhouse gas record set. CNN. Another year, another record level for greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, according to the World Meteorological Organization. The organization reported this week that the level of greenhouse gases detected in the air around the world in 2012 topped the previous record set the year before. It continues an upward and accelerating trend, it said. Green gases haven't been this high in at least 80,000 years and will continue climbing unless something is done soon to curb emissions from burning fossil fuels, the agency said Wednesday. Reports climate change may pose threat to economic growth. Despite worldwide attention to the issues of global climate change, the pace at which carbon dioxide is being added to the atmosphere appears to increase in 2012 and is now 141% of the pre-industrial level, the group said. The observations from WMO's extensive global atmosphere watch network highlight yet again how heat-trapping gases from human activities have upset the natural balance of our atmosphere and are a major contribution to climate change. WMO Secretary General Michael Jarrod said in a prepared statement. Climate change should drive no attempts to new heights within a generation. The report follows another one issued Tuesday by the United Nations Environment Programme indicating that swift action to limit emissions is necessary to hold down the cost of effort to prevent global temperatures from rising more than 3.6 degrees. 2 degrees Celsius. The agency set 2020 as the target for nations closing what it calls the emission gap or fast increased cost and narrowing options to keep temperature increase in check. Climate change warriors, it's time to go nuclear. Climate change report, extremely likely that humans are responsible. Amnesty accuses Shell of making false claims on Niger Delta oil spill. CNN. Amnesty International report issued Wednesday blasts Shell oil call for its handling of the hundreds of oil spills that occur each year in Nigeria and accuses the company of serious deficiencies and abuses that render wholly unreliable its claims about how much oil is spilled and how often. The 80-page report titled Bad Information Oil Spills in the Niger Delta cities corrosion, poor maintenance, equipment failure, sabotage, and oil theft as causes of oil spills. But it challenges that the company's assertion that the vast majority of the spills are caused by sabotage and theft. There is no legitimate basis for this claim, the report says. It relies on the outcome of an oil spill investigation process, commonly known as the Joint Investigation Visit or JIV process, in which the companies themselves are the primary investigators. Reliable data about the spills is critical to limit the harm they can cause to environment, livelihoods, and human health, the report says. Determining their cause is critical because communities affected by spills blamed on sabotage or theft get no compensation in Nigeria, which is itself a flaw, the report says. Oil companies should be held responsible for a spill that is due to sabotage or theft if the operator has failed to take sufficient measures to prevent tampering with its infrastructures, it says. Its response shall, in a statement sent to CNN by spokesman Ross Wheatham, said, the Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Ltd SPDC firmly rejects unsubstantiated assertions that they have exaggerated the impact of crude oil theft and sabotage to distract attention from operational performance. We seek to bring greater transparency and independent oversight to the issues of oil spills, and will continue to find ways to enhance this. This effort include publishing spill data online since January 2011 and working with Bureau Veritas and independent third party to find ways to improve the immediate response to a spill. The Amnesty report acknowledges improvements since 2011, but says serious flaws remain in the company's oil spill investigation process. These include weaknesses in the underlying evidence used to attribute spills to sabotage and the fact that the JIV reports are filled out by Shell after the joint investigation process, not as part of the joint investigation process. There is consequently a lack of transparency and oversight in terms of what is recorded on the new JIV report. But Shell said in its statement that SPDC cannot control the joint investigation process since it involves representatives of regulatory bodies, the Ministry of Environment, the Nigerian Police Force, the state government, and affected communities. The company cited a recent report from Britain's Chatham House that said an average of 100,000 barrels of oil were stolen each day in the first quarter of this year. Coordinated action from the industry, government, security forces, civil society, and others is needed to end this criminality, which remains the main cause of oil pollution in the Delta today, it said. SPDC regrets that some NGOs continues to take a campaigning approach rather than focusing on on-the-ground solutions that bring societal benefits. Audrey Gorman, the Director of Global Issues for Amnesty in London, rejected the company's characterization of the report's claims as unsubstantiated. The assertions are very well substantiated in the report, she said in a telephone interview. We've taken the process down step by step with expert advice and provided individual cases, and all of this was provided to Shell beforehand to seek responses, and we got no responses to anything. She also disputed the company's description of Bureau Veritas as independent. Bureau Veritas is hired by Shell, she said, and she says the Chatham House report is irrelevant. Yes, it documents significant theft, which is a serious issue, she said. But she added, theft is not oil spills. Proving there's lots of theft doesn't prove there's lots of oil spills due to the theft. Your late fees are waived. Blockbuster closes. CNN. Be kind, please rewind. The signs used to say in video stores, urging customers to return their rented VHS tapes, spooled back to the beginning. It's only Blockbuster could rewind back to the 1990s. That was the time when the video chain was the colossus of the movie rental business. with stores in seemingly every city, shopping district, and suburban strip mall in America. Visiting the store was a weekly rate for many people, who would show up on Friday evenings to check out the latest releases, navigating a crush of couples and families who had exactly the same idea, only to find out that the last copy of Air Force One or the Lion King had already been snagged. That custom is now as gone as a world with 3 television networks, a UHF station Late Show, and the Zenith Space Command. On Wednesday, the ISH Network, which purchased Blockbuster in 2011, announced it was closing the chain's 300 remaining US-based retail stores, as well as its distribution centers. Consumer demand is clearly moving to digital distribution of video entertainment, said DISH President and CEO Joseph P. Clayton in a press release about the closures. His statement echoes many from recent years about the migration of entertainment from physical objects, CDs, DVDs, book games, to bits, bytes, and pixels available on various screen and portable devices. Blockbuster will continue its Blockbuster home brand to DISH customers, as well as its Blockbuster on-demand streaming service, and an additional 50 Blockbuster stores not owned by DISH will remain open for the time being. Reaction, jokes, and shrugs. The action was long expected. Blockbuster has been closing stores for years, as it appeals from the yawning vacancies still present in many of those very same strip malls. The chain was known in by Netflix, streaming video, and a world of internet options. Reaction from that internet was, of course, swift and pithy. Several posts on Twitter made fun of the store's late fees, the bane of people who couldn't get their rental back in the standard 48 hours, and the VHS tapes that made Blockbuster's name. I knew this day would come. I'm mere months away from owning a VHS copy for the Mighty Ducks without paying my late fees to Blockbuster, wrote Brian Esp. Yes, all the Blockbuster video stores are closing. That means they'll never get back that VHS tape of Vampire in Brooklyn. I won't, added actor and comedian Paul Scheer. Other commenters just shrugged. Many said they didn't even realize Blockbuster had any stores left. In a headline, the New York Times put it best: "Internet's killed the video store." But Dan Herbert, author of the forthcoming book Videoland, and a film professor at the University of Michigan, wants to praise Blockbuster, not buried. The stores were clean and family-friendly, with wider aisles and a bigger emphasis on movie selection than the mom and pops that dotted the landscape in the 1980s, he said. They really standardized video rental in general, Herbert said. As with many franchises at its head, Blockbuster often came in for criticism. The chain put many mom and pop stores out of business. Befitting its name, it generally caters to a Blockbuster mentally. Hit releases filled shelves by the dozens, but independent and foreign language films could be hard to come by. The stores wouldn't carry NC-17 films at all. And then there was the blockbuster clerk, easily recognized in a blue knit shirt, who was often depicted as either clueless or snotty, depending on how frustrated you were on those crowded Friday nights. But Herbert, a former video clerk himself, thought that the Blockbuster pointed out that Blockbuster was successful for a reason. It has more variety than many video stores. Blockbuster stores were required to have a minimum of 7,000 movies and average 10,000 more than many of its competitors, he said. By doing so, it opened up more of America to more movies and later TV shows collections. Even though Blockbuster itself primarily stuck to cities and suburbs, it became a model for other chains that opened stores in small towns. Playing catch up. If people compared Blockbuster to McDonald's, that wasn't necessarily a knock, said Herbert. They self-consciously modeled themselves on McDonald's and at various points hired members of McDonald's upper management, he said. But over the last decade, business took one hit after another. In a September article, the Billboard's Christopher Tucker described how independent video stores were put out of business. The same trend affected Blockbuster. First, there were DVDs, which were relatively expensive and intended for purchase, especially compared to the VHS titles that cost stores up to $100 a pop. With the advent of broadband, people started downloading movies and shows, not always legally. Netflix and Redbox used the slim size of DVDs to their advantage. And finally, Hulu was launched, and your average Joe and Josephine were introduced to cloud media, Tucker said. Even Blockbuster's late fees came back to bite the chain in an unlikely way. In 1997, a man named Reed Hastings returned a late copy to Apollo 13 to his local Blockbuster. It was assessed $1,400 free. 2 years later, he found Netflix. Blockbuster was caught flat-footed by many of these changes. It could have purchased Netflix for $1,500 million in 2000, but passed it. As Netflix rose, Blockbuster's attempts to compete on Netflix terms, especially through the mall, foundered. It also tried to compete with Redbox using stand-alone kiosks. That didn't work either. By the time Blockbuster was sold to DISH in 2011, it was down to 1,700 stores, more than 7,000 fewer than its peak just 7 years earlier. People had long since started devoting their Friday nights to streaming and downloading at home, and if they were heading out, it wasn't to a Blockbuster. The Onion, of course, nailed it in a 2008 video headline. Historic Blockbuster store offers glimpses of how movies were rented in the past. The sites showcased a Mexican venue that aims to transport visitors to a time before the internet. Like a version of colonial Williamsburg, it had actors, planning clerk, and customers who described how the rental process worked. Onlookers watched the performance, stunned. It's really amazing that people had to go through so much just to get a movie, says a visitor in the skate. Amanda Knox at retrial. Life has been a nightmare beyond imagination. CNN. Amanda Knox's former boyfriend Raffaele Cito took the stand in the Italian court Wednesday, defending himself as a Rachel in the 2007 killing of British exchange student Meredith Kercher. I would like to make you understand that these charges against me are absurd, he said. There was not a basis to charge me, to put me in jail. I don't wish anybody on earth to go through what I went through. He said that evidence against him, a knife that was a key part of the prosecution's case, was an illusion. I ask you to really look at reality, he implored the judges. For me, it's a nightmare that goes beyond imagination, solicitude of what he's been through. Right now, I don't have a real life. Solicitor 29 is not testifying in the case, which is being heard in an appeals court in Florence, but he made a spontaneous declaration, which is the right of any defendant in an Italian trial, and he's not under oath. Read Amanda Knox and Raffaele Cito's retrial. View from inside the courtroom. He and Knox were convicted in 2009 of killing Kercher, 21, who was found stabbed in November 2007 in the villa that she and Knox rented in the central Italian university town of Perugia. Their convictions were overturned in 2011 for lack of evidence, but Italy's Supreme Court decided last year to retry the case, saying the jury that acquitted them didn't consider all the evidence and discrepancies in testimony needed to be answered. Both Knox, 26, and Solicitor have maintained their innocence. Afraid to return. The retrial began on September 30th without either of them present in court. The presiding judge, Alessandro Nansani, read out the details of the case, including the conviction of Ivory Coast citizen Rodin Guede for his role in Kercher's murder. Knox returned to her hometown of Cito after her acquittal and has been living there since. She says she is afraid to return to Italy, where she spent 4 years behind bars. Solicitor was in the Dominican Republic at the start of the retrial but returned to Italy. He and Knox made several spontaneous declarations throughout the original trial and first appeal, but only Knox testifies. Knox is gripped with fear. DNA test. The court's hearing Wednesday is expected to address new DNA test of knife that prosecutor says was used to kill Kercher. The knife was a critical piece of evidence in the original trial. The test involved a small portion of the knife, According to recent Italian media reports, the test ruled out the possibility that Crutch's DNA is present in the sample. That would support Knox and Solicito's case. The results are expected to be reviewed in court Wednesday. Written conclusions by forensic experts have already been filed in Florence. The Italian authorities would examine the spot on the knife are expected to present their report. They will then be questioned by all parties. Knox isn't the only person watching the retrial from afar. Citing health reasons, Crutch's relatives said in September that they had decided not to return to Italy for the retrial. The family said it would follow closely from Britain and remain in close contact with lawyers.